Well, the NDP has named a new interim leader as the party tries to regroup after a dismal election result. Joining us live to chat about this is political commentator and columnist Tom Parkin. Always appreciate your time, Tom. Let's talk about Don Davies. I'm sure a lot of people in Ontario might not know a lot about him. Tell us about him.
Yeah, well, he's the member for Vancouver Kingsway, but he was actually born and raised in Edmonton and went to school there, went to university there, became a lawyer. And briefly, for a couple of years, 2-3 years, I think, worked in the Alberta legislature as an assistant to Ray Martin, who was the Alberta NDP leader back in the early 1990s. And then for about 20 years, he worked in the labor movement and for the Teamsters and was their staff lawyer, was their director of legal affairs, and was elected first with Jack Layton in 2008, and I think that means that he's been now 6 times reelected, or this was his 6th election. He took on a couple of important roles in the last parliament because he was the health critic for most of it, and so we're shepherding through the dental plan and the pharmacare plan. And once those looked like they were fairly secured, he was shifted to finance critic, which is usually a sign that somebody has the support of the group. So here he is now, the interim leader in a very difficult situation, and I think he's going to use a lot. It's going to demand a lot of his talents to get the ball rolling and to regroup.
So he's going to be in the interim leader for the time being. In terms of the process of actually choosing a new leader, what is the timeline on that? What can people expect?
I think, these are decisions that the party will make, the party executive and the council will make, but I would think that they would there's been a lot of chatter about trying to get this done by the end of the year. So that means some campaigns will start coming out of the woodwork fairly early, and it's a one-member, one-vote system, which has some interesting dynamics implications, because after Naheed Nenshi became the leader of the Alberta NDP in what was that, just I guess a year and a half ago, the Alberta NDP became the largest section of the federal NDP. So that is, there are more qualified electors in Alberta than in any other province, including Ontario. So for the dynamic in the election, it means somebody who's from Alberta or understands their issues and I think the really visceral feeling they have about Daniel Smith and about Canadian unity in this context. I think playing to those themes is going to be very, very important.
Tom, anytime, whether you win or lose after an election, there's always that post-mortem in figuring out what went right, what went wrong. Obviously, a lot of things did not go right for the NDP.
More wrong than right, yes.
Losing party status. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of rebuilding and regrouping. What's your take on how this party regroups after suffering such a stunning defeat?
Well, I think there's a lot to be done, and one is to make sure that the caucus itself is united and has a strong sense of purpose over the next number of months as we try and get a new leader in place. That's just critically important. Politics it's like an infinite amount of work in politics, but now it's divided by just 7 instead of previously 24. So a lot of work to be done, and I think the members should expect the caucus members to really hunker down and operate like a team and do the best work they can for us. Seeking that party status, if that could be done, would be really, really helpful. So Don will be charged with that kind of duty. He's also someone, as I mentioned, he was the legal affairs director for a Teamsters local in British Columbia. And he's coming from a labor tradition within the NDP, which is interesting. We haven't had that for a little bit. And it's an interesting problem that the NDP faces. We see it in sections across the country, but also federally. Not too bad in the big cities. The NDP does well in Calgary or Edmonton or Regina or Saskatoon, but they need those slightly smaller communities. For example, the Saskatchewan NDP could become the governing province again, but governing party again. But they need a couple of seats in Moose Jaw. They need a couple of seats in Prince Albert. They have all the seats in Regina, Saskatoon. The same problem really in Alberta. And really here in Ontario, Marit Stiles has a bit of the same challenge, trying to win in those communities. So that crossover between urban workers and smaller town manufacturing resource workers, that's a place I think where Don might be able to help the party quite a bit.
In terms of other areas that the party needs to really rebuild from, and a lot of in terms of messaging as well. Obviously, there was a lot of voters that weren't so happy with the fact that Mr. Singh was very critical of the federal government and all of these policies that didn't work out so well for Canadians, but at the end of the day, it was Jagmeet Singh and the NDP that propped up those policies that led to a lot of the economic downturns that we've seen in our country. Pretty much one of the worst GDP per capitas in all of the developed world. How does the NDP, what's going to be the focus of the messaging and how to separate themselves from the previous leader and some of the policies that they chose to support?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's going to be. Well, let me just say this: we saw some GDP numbers come out from StatsCan last week, and we saw some of the difficulties this country faces, and frankly, specifically, what Ontario faces. So if I can just focus on that idea, Ontario had the second lowest GDP growth in the country in 2024, based on these new numbers that we just got. And we saw industries like retailing, furnishing, purchasing furnishings, purchasing renovations, housing construction, all down. So there are some real signals that people are tapped out. They don't have the money to go and consume, and it is affecting our economy in a much broader way. It's not just that rents are too high, and so therefore we got to address renters, but rents are too high, and it means that renters don't have the money to go to a restaurant to get a dinner or to buy a car or all kinds of things that help build our economy. So I think this is the space where the New Democrats have to be stronger than in the past, is to talk about how can we create a economically vibrant country by perhaps trying to stitch together all of the various economies across this big country, whether it is in manufacturing, service sector, resources, etc., and trying to put in place the policy sets that will help create jobs and return a sense of optimism that in the future you will have enough money left at the end of the month to go out and spend a little bit on things that our neighbors and fellow country people are making. And that'll be an important lift.
Let's hope. Tom Parkin, we appreciate your time as always. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.